There are some diseases and disorders that can affect the immune system, and you can imagine that if the immune system isn't working properly, that can cause some pretty major problems. So first of all, we'll take a look at some different types of immunodeficiencies. So immunodeficiency can be caused by a variety of different things. So first of all, there's one type called severe combined immunodeficiency disease, or SCID. And this is an inherited genetic disease in which the immune system doesn't work properly. You may have heard about the boy that lived in a bubble. Um, he had this disease and was therefore not able to fight off pathogens that wouldn't be fatal to someone with a healthy immune system. Human immunodeficiency virus, which is what HIV stands for, and HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. And the virus is transmitted through body fluids, so primarily through semen, blood, and vaginal fluids. So it's primarily passed from person to person during either sexual intercourse of some sort, anytime blood is exchanged, which could be using a needle or if there's an accidental needle stick. Those are things that can transfer HIV from one person to another person. Now, HIV nowadays is actually fairly manageable with antiviral drugs, but if the virus, the infection becomes too prevalent, it leads to AIDS, and AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. So HIV can be managed, but once it has progressed to AIDS, it basically means that the immune system is no longer able to fight off pathogens that it encounters. So typically people that have developed AIDS, they may die due to getting a common cold or the flu or something that wouldn't be very concerning to someone with a fully functioning immune system. And HIV, the virus, it infects and attacks helper T cells. And remember, helper T cells are kind of the link between the second line of defense and the T cells and the B cells. So by disabling the helper T cells, it prevents the adaptive immune response from being able to work, and it also weakens the secondary kind of level of the immune response. So it really disables the entire immune system, and the person can't fight off pathogens. Immunodeficiency can also be caused by certain medications. The most kind of commonly known is chemotherapy. So chemotherapy are drugs used to fight off cancer, but in addition to fighting off the cancer, they also typically weaken the immune system. So someone who is going through chemotherapy treatment typically has a weaker immune system and has to be more careful in order to not be exposed to certain pathogens that might make them sicker. There are also things called hypersensitivities, and you might know them more commonly as allergies. And allergies are just an exaggerated inflammatory response to something that's non-pathogenic. So, for example, pollen. When plants produce pollen, there's no reason why your body should mount an immune response to pollen. It's not pathogenic. It doesn't infect your cells and make you sick. But for some reason, the immune system recognizes it as a pathogen and the inflammatory response is activated. And so the symptoms of allergies, which includes runny nose and scratchy eyes and inflammation, is due to the immune system responding to these substances that are not pathogenic. There are also some diseases or disorders in which the immune system attacks the body cells that are supposed to be there. So remember we said with the adaptive immune response that one thing that T cells and B cells have to do before they can mature is they have to prove that they're not going to attack the body cells with the antigens that are supposed to be there. But in some cases, for whatever reason, they don't know exactly what causes this self-recognition mechanism to fail, but the immune cells start to attack the normal body cells that are supposed to be there. So some examples of some common autoimmune disorders includes rheumatoid arthritis, in which the immune system attacks the joints. And you can see this is an x-ray of someone with rheumatoid arthritis, and it typically causes the joints to become disfigured and painful and immobile, and it really damages the joints. And lupus is another one that's kind of well known, and lupus causes this image here shows you some of the symptoms associated with lupus. So it's kind of systemic wide inflammation in which the immune system is attacking different organs and tissues of the body. As I mentioned, we don't really know what the cause of autoimmune diseases are, but there are several theories out there. One of them is that we might be too clean. So if you think about it, back in the day, people were exposed to a lot of pathogens very early on in their lives, and they developed immunity against those pathogens, and it kind of gave the immune cells something to attack. But nowadays, we take showers regularly, and we use antibacterial soap, and we use like hand sanitizer, and we clean our houses with bleach and other chemicals to kill off pathogens. And by doing that, it could be that our immune cells don't have pathogens to attack, and so instead they just start attacking body cells because they need something to do. It could be caused by a viral infection that somehow triggers the immune cells to start attacking the normal body cells. There are likely some genetic factors involved because some autoimmune disorders tend to run in families. And there also might be some other environmental triggers. So it could be exposure to certain pollutants or chemicals that triggers an autoimmune disorder in a particular person. Now, immunity is something that we also have to consider whenever an organ transplant or a tissue transplant is happening. And we kind of talked about this a little bit when we talked about blood donations, because if you are given a donation from the wrong blood type, an immune reaction can happen with the antibodies in your blood and the antigens on the blood cells, causing major problems, including death. Now, this also has to do with someone donating an organ. So, for example, if someone donates a kidney to you, that's a really awesome thing that you're getting this donated kidney so that you now have a functioning kidney. The problem is that the cells that make up that kidney have different antigens on them than the rest of the cells in your body. And your immune system doesn't know the difference. All it knows is that there are antigens that are not supposed to be there, and the immune system thinks that it's a pathogen and will therefore try to attack the organ. So typically when they do an organ donation, they try to find a closely matching donor. And what they're looking for are matching MHC molecules. So if you remember, the MHC molecules were the molecules that the antigen presenting cells use to present the antigens to the T cells to activate them. So there are actually 6 major types of MHC molecules, and the more MHC molecules that match, the better the success of the transplant is going to be. And the MHC proteins are determined by genetics. So typically a family member is going to be a closer match than a random donor. It's especially great if you have a sibling, and even better if you have an identical twin. So if you have an identical twin, then your MHC proteins are going to match very closely. But even with a sibling, you typically have several of those MHC proteins that are going to match up. Even with matching the MHC proteins as much as possible, the recipient of the organ or the tissue has to take anti-rejection drugs for the rest of their lives. And these drugs help to suppress the immune system response to a degree. And the benefit is that it suppresses it so that the immune system doesn't attack the organ, but it's also bad because then the person has a depressed immune system and they can't attack other pathogens that try to make their way into the body. So it's kind of a balance where you don't want the immune system to attack the donated organ, but you still want to have some immune function to be able to fight off colds and flu and bacterial infections. And if you've ever heard of the term rejection, rejection occurs when the recipient's immune system attacks the donated organ. And so basically the immune system kills the organ, and if it's a vital organ like the heart, that can result in death. Now, if it's something like a kidney, then that person could potentially go back on dialysis and wait to get another organ transplant. So rejection is something that they really try to prevent because it's not good if the body rejects the donated organ. Now, the immune system can attack some forms of cancer, and that's because some cancers are actually caused by viruses. And so if the immune system is healthy, it can attack the viruses or the cells infected by viruses and potentially prevent the virus from causing cancer. Some of these cancers, we also have vaccines that can be given in order to prevent someone from developing cancer after they've been exposed to the virus. So some examples of cancers caused by viruses. First of all is Kaposi sarcoma. This is caused by a herpes virus, and this is typically pretty well kind of kept in check by the immune system, except for in people with HIV, kind of advanced HIV infections, to the point where they have AIDS or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So this is one particular virus that is a symptom of someone that has advanced HIV. And that's what is actually being shown in the picture. Liver cancer is caused by a virus called hepatitis B. Cervical cancer is caused by HPV, which is human papillomavirus, and there is a vaccine that came out probably in the last 10 years or so against HPV that is supposed to help prevent someone exposed to HPV from developing cervical cancer.